KOFI A ANNAN of Ghana, the 7th Secretary-General of the United Nations, served from 1997 to 2006 and was the first to emerge from the ranks of United Nations staff. One of Mr. Annan's main priorities as Secretary-General was a comprehensive program of reform aimed at revitalizing the United Nations and making the international system more effective. He was a constant advocate for human rights, the rule of law, the Millennium Development Goals and Africa, and sought to bring the organization closer to the global public by forging ties with civil society, the private sector and other partners. At Mr. Annan's initiative, UN peacekeeping was strengthened in ways that enabled the United Nations to cope with the rapid rise in the number of operations and personnel. It was also at Mr. Annan's urging that, in 2005, member states established two new intergovernmental bodies, the Peacebuilding Commission and the Human Rights Council. Mr. Annan likewise played a central role in the creation of the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis and malaria, the adoption of the UN's first-ever counter-terrorism strategy, and the acceptance by member states of the responsibility to protect people from genocide, war crimes, ethnic cleansing and crimes against humanity. His Global Compact initiative, launched in 1999, has become the world's largest effort to promote corporate social responsibility. Mr. Annan undertook wide-ranging diplomatic initiatives. In 1998, he helped to ease the transition to civilian rule in Nigeria. Also, that year, he visited Iraq in an effort to resolve an impasse between that country and the Security Council over compliance with resolutions involving weapons inspections and other matters, an effort that helped to avoid an outbreak of hostilities, which was imminent at that time. In 1999, he was deeply involved in the process by which Timor-Leste gained independence from Indonesia. He was responsible for certifying Israel's withdrawal from Lebanon in 2000, and in 2006, his efforts contributed to securing a cessation of hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah. Also in 2006, he mediated a settlement of the dispute between Cameroon and Nigeria over the Bakassi Peninsula through implementation of the judgment of the International Court of Justice. His efforts to strengthen the organization's management, coherence, and accountability involved major investments in training and technology, the introduction of a new whistleblower policy and financial disclosure requirements, and steps aimed at improving coordination at the country level. Mr. Annan joined the UN system in 1962 as an administrative and budget officer with the World Health Organization in Geneva. He later served with the Economic Commission for Africa in Addis Ababa, the UN Emergency Force, UNEF2, in Ismailia, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNCRR, in Geneva, and in various senior posts in New York dealing with human resources, budget, finance, and staff security. Immediately before becoming Secretary-General, he was Under-Secretary-General for Peacekeeping. Mr. Annan also served as Special Representative of the Secretary-General to the former Yugoslavia, 1995 to 1996, and facilitated the repatriation from Iraq of more than 900 international staff and other non-Iraqi nationals, 1990. Mr. Annan studied at the University of Science and Technology in Kumasi, Ghana, and completed his undergraduate work in economics at Macalester College in St. Paul, Minnesota in 1961. In 1961 to 1962, he undertook graduate studies at the Institute of International Affairs in Geneva, and in 1972 earned a Master of Science degree at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology Sloan School of Management. Mr. Annan was awarded the 2001 Nobel Prize for Peace, jointly with the organization. He has also received numerous honorary degrees and many other national and international prizes, medals and honors. Mr. Annan was born in Kumasi, Ghana, on April 8, 1938, and was fluent in English, French and several African languages. KOFI Annan died on August 18, 2018 in Bern, Switzerland, at the age of 80. After he served as UN Secretary-General, Annan took up residence in Geneva and worked in a leading capacity on various international humanitarian endeavors. In 2007, Annan established the KOFI Annan Foundation, an independent, not-for-profit organization that works to promote better global governance and strengthen the capacities of people and countries to achieve a fairer, more secure world. The organization was founded on the principles that fair and peaceful societies rest on three pillars: peace and security, sustainable development, and human rights and the rule of law, and they have made it their mission to mobilize the leadership and the political resolve needed to tackle threats to these three pillars, ranging from violent conflict to flawed elections and climate change, to achieve a fairer, more peaceful world. The foundation provides the analytical, communication and coordination capacities needed to ensure that these objectives are achieved. ANNAN's contribution to peace worldwide is delivered through mediation, political mentoring, advocacy, and advice. Through his engagement, ANNAN aimed to strengthen local and international conflict resolution capabilities. The Foundation provides the analytical and logistical support to facilitate this in cooperation with relevant local, regional and international actors. The Foundation works mainly through private diplomacy, where ANNAN provided informal counsel and participated in discreet diplomatic initiatives to avert or resolve crises by applying his experience and inspirational leadership. He was often asked to intercede in crises, sometimes as an impartial, independent mediator, sometimes as a special envoy of the international community. In recent years he had provided such counsel to Burkina Faso, Kenya, Myanmar, Senegal, Iraq, and Colombia. Following the outbreak of violence after the 2007 presidential elections in Kenya, the African Union, established the panel of eminent African personalities to assist in finding a peaceful solution to the crisis. ANNAN was appointed as chair of the panel, to lead it with Benjamin Mkapa, former president of Tanzania, and humanitarian Graca Machel, the former First Lady of Mozambique and South Africa. The panel managed to convince the two principal parties to the conflict, Kenyan President Mwai Kibaki's Party of National Unity, PNU, and Raila Odinga's Orange Democratic Movement, ODM, to participate in the Kenya National Dialogue and Reconciliation Process, KNDR. Over the course of 41 days of negotiations, several agreements regarding taking actions to stop the violence and to remedy its consequences were signed. On February 28, President Kibaki and Prime Minister Odinga signed a coalition government agreement. On February 23, 2012, ANNAN was appointed as the UN and Arab League Joint Special Envoy to Syria in an attempt to end the civil war taking place. He developed a 6-point plan for peace. 1. Commit to work with the envoy in an inclusive Syrian-led political process to address the legitimate aspirations and concerns of the Syrian people, and, to this end, commit to appoint an empowered interlocutor when invited to do so by the envoy. 2. Commit to stop the fighting and achieve urgently an effective United Nations supervised cessation of armed violence in all its forms by all parties to protect civilians and stabilize the country. To this end, the Syrian government should immediately cease troop movements towards, and end the use of heavy weapons in, population centers, and begin pullback of military concentrations in and around population centers. As these actions are being taken on the ground, the Syrian government should work with the envoy to bring about a sustained cessation of armed violence in all its forms by all parties with an effective United Nations supervision mechanism. Similar commitments would be sought by the envoy from the opposition and all relevant elements to stop the fighting and work with him to bring about a sustained cessation of armed violence in all its forms by all parties with an effective United Nations supervision mechanism. 3. Ensure timely provision of humanitarian assistance to all areas affected by the fighting, and to this end, as immediate steps, to accept and implement a daily 2-hour humanitarian pause and to coordinate exact time and modalities of the daily pause through an efficient mechanism, including at local level. 4. Intensify the pace and scale of release of arbitrarily detained persons, including especially vulnerable categories of persons, and persons involved in peaceful political activities. Provide without delay through appropriate channels a list of all places in which such persons are being detained. Immediately begin organizing access to such locations and through appropriate channels respond promptly to all written requests for information, access, or release regarding such persons. 5. Ensure freedom of movement throughout the country for journalists and a non-discriminatory visa policy for them. 6. Respect freedom of association and the right to demonstrate peacefully as legally guaranteed. On August 2, he resigned as envoy to Syria, citing the intransigence of both the Assad government and the rebels, as well as the stalemate on the Security Council as preventing any peaceful resolution of the situation. Annan also stated that the lack of international unity and ineffective diplomacy among world leaders had made the peaceful resolution in Syria an impossible task. Annan served as the chair of the Global Commission on Elections, Democracy, and Security. The commission was launched in May 2011 as a joint initiative of the KOFI Annan Foundation and the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance. It comprised 12 eminent individuals from around the world, including Ekobedo Zedillo, Marti Adisari, Madeleine Albright, and Amartya Sen, and aimed to highlight the importance of the integrity of elections to achieving a more secure, prosperous, and stable world. The Commission released its final report, Deepening Democracy, a strategy to improve the integrity of elections worldwide, in September 2012. In September 2016, Annan was asked to lead the Advisory Commission on Rakhine State, Myanmar, an impoverished region beset by ethnic conflict and extreme sectarian violence, particularly by Myanmar's Buddhist majority against the Rohingya Muslim minority, further targeted by government forces. The commission, widely known simply as the Annan Commission, was opposed by many Myanmar Buddhists as unwelcome interference in their relations with the Rohingya. When the Annan Commission released its final report, the week of August 24, 2017, with recommendations unpopular with all sides, violence exploded in the Rohingya conflict, the largest and bloodiest humanitarian disaster in the region in decades, driving most of the Rohingya from Myanmar. Annan attempted to engage the United Nations to resolve the matter, but failed. Annan died a week before the first anniversary of the report, shortly after an announcement by a replacement commission that it would not point fingers at the guilty parties, leading to widespread concern that the new commission was just a sham to protect culpable Myanmar government officials and citizens from accountability. In 2018, before Annan's death, Myanmar's civilian government, under the direction of State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi, made a gesture of acceptance of the Annan Commission's recommendations by convening another board, the Advisory Board for the Committee for Implementation of the Recommendations on Rakhine State, ostensibly to implement the Annan Commission's proposed reforms, but never actually implemented them. Some of the international representatives resigned, notably the panel's secretary, Thailand's former Foreign Minister Surikiart Satharathai, and former U.S. Ambassador to the UN Bill Richardson, decrying the Implementation Committee as ineffective, or a whitewash. In March 2011, Annan became a member of the Advisory Board for Investcorp Bank BSC Europe, an international private equity firm and sovereign wealth fund owned by the United Arab Emirates. He held the position until 2018. Annan became a member of the Global Advisory Board of Macro Advisory Partners LLP, a risk and strategic consulting firm based in London and New York City for business, finance and government decision-makers, with some operations related to Investcorp. In addition to the above, Annan also became involved with several organizations with both global and African focuses, including the following: United Nations Foundation, member of the Board of Directors, 2008 to 2018. University of Ghana, Chancellor, 2008 to 2018. School of International and Public Affairs of Columbia University, Global Fellow, 2009 to 2018. The Committee on Global Thought at Columbia University, Fellow. Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy at the National University of Singapore, News, Lee Ka-shing Professor, 2009 to 2018. Global Center for Pluralism, Member of the Board of Directors, 2010 to 2018. Mo Ibrahim Prize for Achievement in African Leadership, Chairman of the Prize Committee, 2007 to 2018. Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA, Chairman, 2007 to 2018. Global Humanitarian Forum, Founder and President, 2007 to 2018. Global Commission on Drug Policy, Founding Commissioner. The Commission had declared in a 2011 report that the war on drugs was a failure. Annan believed that, since drug use represents a health risk, it should be regulated, comparing it to the regulation of tobacco which reduced smoking in many countries. Annan served as chair of the Elders, a group of independent global leaders who work together on peace and human rights issues. In November 2008, Annan and fellow elders Jimmy Carter and Graca Machel attempted to travel to Zimbabwe to make a first-hand assessment of the humanitarian situation in the country. Refused entry, the elders instead carried out their assessment from Johannesburg, where they met Zimbabwe and South Africa-based leaders from politics, business, international organizations, and civil society. In May 2011, following months of political violence in Côte d'Ivoire, Annan traveled to the country with elders Desmond Tutu and Mary Robinson to encourage national reconciliation. On October 16, 2014, Annan attended the One Young World Summit in Dublin. During a session with fellow elder Mary Robinson, Annan encouraged 1,300 young leaders from 191 countries to lead on intergenerational issues such as climate change and the need for action to take place now, not tomorrow. We don't have to wait to act. The action must be now. You will come across people who think we should start tomorrow. Even for those who believe action should begin tomorrow, remind them tomorrow begins now. Tomorrow begins today, so let's all move forward. Annan chaired the Africa Progress Panel, AP, a group of 10 distinguished individuals who advocate at the highest levels for equitable and sustainable development in Africa. As chair, he facilitated coalition building to leverage and broker knowledge, in addition to convening decision-makers to influence policy and create lasting change in Africa. Every year, the panel releases a report, the Africa Progress Report, which outlines an issue of immediate importance to the continent and suggests a set of associated policies. In 2014, the report highlighted the potential of African fisheries, agriculture, and forests to drive economic development. The 2015 report explores the role of climate change and the potential of renewable energy investments in determining Africa's economic future. On September 4, 2012, Annan with Nader Musavizadeh wrote a memoir, Interventions, A Life in War and Peace. Published by Penguin Press, the book has been described as a personal biography of global statecraft. Kofi Annan played a pivotal role in getting a WHO resolution on having the burden of snakebite in late 2020s. In 1965, Annan married Titi Alakija, a Nigerian woman from an aristocratic family. Several years later, they had a daughter, Ama, and a son, Kojo. The couple separated in the late 1970s, and divorced in 1983. In 1984, Annan married Nane Lagergren, a Swedish lawyer at the UN and a maternal half-niece of diplomat Raoul Wallenberg. She has a daughter, Nina, from a previous marriage. In 2002, Annan was installed by Otumfuo Nana Ose Tututu, the Asantehene of Asante Man, as the Busamuru of the Ashanti people, a Ghanaian chief. He was the first person to hold this title. Annan died on the morning of August 18, 2018 in Bern, Switzerland, at the age of 80, after a short illness. Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary-General, said that Annan was a global champion for peace and a guiding force for good. Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad also said he is saddened by the death of Annan. His body was returned to his native Ghana from Geneva in a brief and solemn ceremony at the Kotoka International Airport in Accra, on September 10. His coffin, draped in the blue UN flag, was accompanied by his widow Nane, his children, and senior diplomats from the international organization. On September 13, a state funeral was held for Annan in Ghana at the Accra International Conference Center. The ceremony was attended by several political leaders from across Africa as well as Ghanaian traditional rulers, European royalty, and dignitaries from the international community, including the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. Prior to the funeral service, his body lay in state in the foyer of the same venue, from 11 to September 12. A private burial followed the funeral service at the new military cemetery at Burma Camp, with full military honors and the sounding of the last post by Army buglers and a 17-gun salute. The United Nations Postal Administration released a new stamp in memory of Annan on May 31, 2019. His portrait on the stamp was designed by artist Martin Mork. The KOFI Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center and the Ghana India KOFI Annan Center of Excellence in ICT, both in Accra, are named in his honor. The KOFI Annan University of Guinea is named after him. Thank you for watching this video.